Raider Nation. Thank you for joining us on the Only Nation podcast, brought to you by the Raider Ramble and sponsored by Chucky Stuggs. My name is Heidi, but you may know me as Kevlar Prom Dress or even Raider Ladybug. I'm here with T3 Raider Facts, and we're ready to talk some Raiders football together.
Always ready to talk some Raiders football, and this week we are excited.
Oh yes, we are. Today on the show, we will be talking about the Raiders' big, huge, enormous win against the Chargers on Sunday night. Then we will turn our attention to Saturday and a big playoff game against Cincinnati. Derek Carr's very first playoff start ever.
Okay, Raider Nation, we would love to hear from you, so here's how you can get in touch with us. Give us a call on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. You can also check us out on the web at onlynationpod.com.
Here's the latest Raider news.
Daniel Carlson kicked a 47-yard field goal on the final play in the overtime period to give the Raiders a 35-32 victory over the Los Angeles Chargers, locking up the number 5 seed in the AFC playoffs and knocking the Chargers out of the playoffs.
Yes, and as we got down to the overtime, and we got down to the point where if Carlson misses the field goal, both the Raiders and Chargers go to the playoffs, but if he makes the field goal, we get to knock them out. And that's exactly what we did. And as one of the announcers said, I believe that Daniel Carlson has not missed a field goal in Allegiant Stadium.
He hasn't. And I was really hoping that he was going to hit that one. But it was kind of nice because of a game-deciding field goal that comes down to emotionally, hey, we're a win anyways. You know, it will either be in the playoffs because he misses or will be in the playoffs because he hits it. So as far as game-winning field goals go, it was entirely void of pressure as a fan, but I'm really glad that he made it go in.
The funny thing about the game was I think I saw those two Steelers fans in the stands as much as I saw anybody during the entire game.
Yeah, it was great. And once overtime period hit, you knew everyone in Pittsburgh was gasping and crying for air because they didn't have any. Derek Carr went 20 of 36 for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns. It wasn't a lights-out performance, but there were no turnovers on the night, although he did come close. And Derek and the offense really stepped up as a team and delivered when the team and his fans needed it the most.
Now, we all knew and we were all worried about when that strip sack was going to happen, and of course, indeed it did. Thank goodness Mr. Parker was there to kind of scoop up the remnants and keep everything alive. But Derek stepped up and did what he needed to do. Overall, I think the offensive line did a good job, and Derek assumed command, and he was confident pretty much the whole game. The team did what it needed to do, and they delivered when they needed to deliver.
Yeah, and I can say that right now, even this early in the year of 2022, I can say the world has stopped spinning because I am going to say one thing. Thank God for Brandon Parker.
Okay, there you had it. Let's mark this date down on the calendar.
Yes, definitely. Josh Jacobs had a big game for the Raiders, running for 132 yards on 26 carries, including a critical 28-yard run in overtime. This will be the Raiders' first playoff appearance since 2016 and will mark Derek Carr's first playoff start ever.
Yeah, and I just want to mention Josh Jacobs. He had probably his best game as a Raider, at least for this season. He may have had other big games, but I think when you look at the stage he was on and all the people that were heaping expectations on him to really step forward, he did his job. He did what he needed to do. He hung on to the ball. He had good ball security, and he bounced outside a lot like he did his rookie year. So I started to see a lot of the same shades of Josh Jacobs that I saw back in 2019. He's battled injury a lot, but he really stepped up. Now, he still may not get that big, huge extension next year, but he certainly proved his worth on Sunday.
Yeah, and he set a new career record for him. He had never had up to 132 yards rushing in one game. Now, granted, it was an overtime game, but he still hit it. 132 yards on 26 carries is nothing to sneeze at, and it was a big foundation to the victory. Linebacker Denzel Perryman had 9 total tackles and 8 solo tackles, and Max Crosby had 6 and 6, along with 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 4 quarterback hits to lead the way for the Las Vegas Raiders defense.
Max Crosby was coming all night. This guy has a motor that just won't quit. And we just knew that he was coming. And I don't know how Herbert escaped a lot of the things that he did. He proved himself to be, I think, a really, really valuable quarterback for this Chargers organization. And I think he's going to be a foundational piece for this division for many years to come. I got to give him full props and full credit. And how he managed to escape some of those, I just don't know. But the defense stepped up when it needed to. And the amazing thing is they only had 4 penalties in the entire game, the entire Raiders team. 2 of those, though, were real critical. And that one, the illegal contact penalty on face-on came on a 3rd and 17. That was a killer.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Justin Herbert is a very good quarterback, and he's here to stay. And he's going to be a thorn in our side for many years. He had a good game. He really did. But there were a couple of errors that the Raiders were able to capitalize on, and the Raiders just didn't give up. I know some of the discussion has been in the aftermath of the game that, this team just does not give up. There's something special about this team. And I think we saw that on Sunday night. Okay, let's talk about the big win. We've now had a chance to catch our breaths. So let's step back and take a closer look at what we saw unfold at Allegiant Stadium.
All right, first, let me say that my reverse psychology worked out just perfectly. And now, Raider Nation, I'm pleased to announce another personalized jersey giveaway. So leave us a message on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line or send either Heidi or me a message via social media, and we will register you for a chance to win. And we'll announce the winner in a couple of weeks, so this will give you a chance to enter. As for the game, the Raiders, as we said, did what they needed to do. The offense showed up, even though they may have left a few points off the board. Daniel Carlson was spectacular, as usual. Derek Carr didn't give up a turnover, although we mentioned he almost did. Josh Jacob had his best game of the year. The defense came up big, and it was just a total team effort. Now, 7 weeks ago, I said that the Raiders had lost their playoff game when they lost to the Bengals. Well, here we are 7 weeks later, and now we're talking an actual playoff game against those same Cincinnati Bengals. And this time, I have a really good feeling about the game.
I was really glad that we had a victory under our belts because that meant we're playing the Bengals and we weren't drawing, let's see, a game against the Chiefs, because that would have been tough to start the playoffs with. Not something that the Raiders can't win, but it would be really tough to start it with. The Bengals would be tough enough. But what we saw in the game was the Raiders really coming together and working as a team. Yes, there were still a few too many field goal attempts for my comfort, and the offensive line did collapse a few times. And it was good to see Derek Carr actually be able to move around in the pocket and protect that. He didn't just go down. He didn't curl up in a little fetal position and go down with the ball. He kept fighting. He stepped around the rush. He kept playing the game. And that was really obvious to see. I would like to see the red zone efficiency work a little bit better. I've been saying that all year, and I'm going to say that again. But thank God we have Danny Ice to kick our field goals. Daniel Carlson saved the day.
And, Brandon Staley, the coach of the Chargers, was just thrown under the bus time and again for going for that 4th down earlier in the game. And they only ended up giving up a field goal. So it wasn't the worst thing in the world. Their defense stood tall, even though their run defense got gashed a lot. And their special teams has been horrible. Of course, you saw that punt that was fumbled that the Raiders got back. Now, Derek Carr missed a wide open Zay Jones on one pass play that could have busted the game wide open. And once again, there are a couple of chances that the Raiders had to get touchdowns where they only got field goals. And we're starting to shake our head thinking, oh no, here we go again. We're getting field goals when we should be getting touchdowns. Hunter Renfrow came up big a couple of times, but There were a couple of critical drops. He had one, Darren Waller had one, and Derek missed Zay Jones a couple times. Brian Edwards had a couple of good catches, but I don't think he was utilized nearly as much as he should have been. And we had that big gain by Foster Moreau, and thank goodness that ball didn't go out of the end zone. When he first fumbled it, I was thinking it had gone out of the end zone, and one of the announcers had said the same thing. And of course, I was just I caught my breath again when I saw it go out on the one. But once again, you got to hand it to the Chargers, who were down to their last strike several times. They were 6 for 7 on fourth down conversions, and 2 of those were touchdowns. I mean, you can't pull it out of the fire any more than they did. And you've got to kind of hammer the Raiders defense for giving those up when they gave them up. But again, the Raiders defense did what they needed to do when they needed to do it. So you got to credit the Chargers on some points, but you've got to credit the Raiders defense on some points as well. And there was a lot of gray in between.
Yeah, the Chargers never gave up, and you've got to hand it to them. They played their hearts out. There's no question about that. Justin Herbert was, I believe, 6 for 6 on fourth downs for 104 yards, I believe it was. And like you said, 1 or 2 touchdowns. It was crazy how he pulled off the fourth down plays for the Chargers. So this is not to say that they played poorly at all. It was just the Raiders outlasted them. The Raiders defense definitely has a lot that they need to improve on. The Raiders offensive line definitely has a lot to improve on. And it really was. It was not a good game for spectacular stats receiving wise for the Raiders. I mean, Hunter Renfrow, yeah, he had 4 catches for a total of 13 yards. Now, he also added 2 touchdowns to that. So that more than made up for it. But the receiving capabilities of the Raiders really was kind of ignored. And it's something that they could really build on and improve on. And we might be able to see that as we play the Bengals on Saturday. So hats off to the Raiders. Hats off to the Chargers. It was a great game to end the season on for the NFL. And man, I don't think there were many people that turned that game off early.
Yeah, 2 things I wanted to mention. Number one, and you just harped on it just a second ago, you got to give the NFL credit for scheduling. Who knew at the very end that this very last game of the season, which would then get pushed to the Sunday night game, would come down to not just the last play of the game, but the last play of overtime to determine whether one team or 2 teams would go to the playoffs. And then, of course, the last setup was Indianapolis and Jacksonville. Of course, Jacksonville pulled the stunner there to knock Indy out. You had Pittsburgh playing against Baltimore on the same field that Ben Roethlisberger actually started his career against 18 years ago. It was on that same field. It was in Baltimore where he took over for an injured Tommy Maddox. It probably seems like an entire generation ago, and it was. But again, you got to credit the NFL for that ability to see everything in advance like they did to put it together. Now, there are 2 things I want to mention as far as the defensive side of the ball. Number one, I want to give props to a guy who I've been giving shade to for a couple of years. Dallin Levitt played a hell of a game. He made a couple of big tackles, and he was flying around to the ball like I have not seen him fly around to the ball since he's been with the Raiders. I always am worried when I see him back there, not on special teams, but actually starting on the back end. But he really raised his game, I think, and played lights out, in my opinion. The other guy on defense who I wanted to mention was a huge loss, and I hope that his injury is not serious. But Darius Philon, who I had such high hopes for at the beginning of the year, really balled out. He was stuffing the middle. He was stuffing the runs. He was playing with a lot of energy and doing all the things that I thought that he would do at the very beginning of the year before we even started. So I'm hoping that injury is not very serious and that we get him back. But regardless, I'm looking forward to seeing him back in 2022.
Oh yeah, Darius Philon, he's someone who before the year started, I wasn't even sure would make the team. And he has been nothing but an impact player over and over and over again. He has really earned his keep, and I'm looking forward to us being able to sign him long term because he's made such an impact.
It had to make the Chargers organization just livid when you looked at all the former Chargers that came in and had such a huge impact on not only this game, but the entire season for the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, normally it's the Raiders that are befuddled because they see people that we gave up on be able to change teams and just make such an impact. I mean, how many times in the last few weeks have I been lamenting the loss of Rasul Douglas? I mean, the man has looked fantastic this year, and we gave up on him. Man, we sure could have used him at this point. But Dallin Levitt, he has really elevated his game. And I have to say that, and I hate to say it, but the Raiders' defense is better without Jonathan Abram.
It really is. I hate to admit that, and I made mention of that, I think, last week and the week before. I would love to see, and maybe I'm the only one, but I would love to see them go ahead and convert Divine Diablo into that strong safety position and move on from Abram. I don't hate Abram, but I see a lot of upside in Divine Diablo, and he's done a lot to maintain his spot and to prove his worth as one of those draft picks from 2021.
Yeah, Diablo, he's had a great month. He really has. And he had another great game. And I am really glad to see him come out and make such a difference.
I'll tell you who else we haven't missed either, and that's Corey Littleton. We have not missed him at all. I mean, the Raiders team stepped up, and he seemed to be very non existent in the games that he played. I don't see him coming back. But again, I'm very disappointed because I was so excited when we first brought him on as a free agent. I think a lot of people within Raider Nation were. But addition by subtraction, the Raiders defense has been playing better and a lot more solid with him not in the lineup.
They really have. And it's kind of sad to say that, but it's also glad to be able to say, hey, we have a solution to what's been going on. And it has been these players. And these players are available. We can keep them for a long time. And hopefully we will lock them up and be able to utilize them for years to come.
Now, I just want a true linebacker, either in the draft or in free agency. Not to say that we don't have any, because Denzel Perryman has proven himself, and KJ Wright has as well, but he's got some wear on those tires, and we can't rely on that. We need to bring in a thumper. We need to bring in a good young guy who is not only a good young guy, but a true linebacker, something that we have needed for many, many, many years.
Yeah, Perriman, when he went down, I was like, oh no, this is not one that we can afford to lose. Man, he has made such an impact. I am really glad that we signed him. He was another one where I was like, I don't even know if he's going to make the team. But man, his impact has been tenfold.
I thought he was going to be just a depth piece. And when we signed him, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, kind of nice. We have to have some depth now. But he's turned out really to be, I think, the MVP of that defense this year.
And my opinions have, I definitely have my opinions on the show. And I definitely can confess when I'm wrong. And I was wrong about Phylon. I was wrong about Perriman. And I was also wrong when I said I didn't think the Raiders would be able to make the playoffs after that loss against Kansas City. But hey, they pulled off the miracle. They won 4 games in a row, and they are in the playoffs. And it is a special team. I don't want to call it a team of destiny, but there is something different about it. It's not a team that just rolls over and dies. And it's been a joy to see them out on the field and continue to play and not give up.
Well, since we're doing our confessionals here, I need to do my confessional as well. 7 weeks ago, when we lost against Cincinnati, and I say we, the Raiders, I said they're done. Playoffs are done. And then I started to focus our attention on playing the role of Grinch. And of course, we played it against the Dallas Cowboys and then had 2 losses in a row. And of course, once we lost to the Washington football team and then got waxed by Kansas City, we're thinking, oh, here we go. This is just going to be the beginning of the end. But this Raiders team, unlike others Raiders teams, they stepped up and they won their last 4 games. They did not fold it up. They did not pack their tents and go into hiding. They pulled it together. They won their last 4 games of the season, and they won their way into the playoffs.
You're right.
It's good to be right.
It is good to be right sometime. All right, speaking of being right, let's see who is going to win this week against Cincinnati. T3?
All right, this week I am all in on the Raiders. They're a hot team. Darren Waller's going to get one more week to get back to full speed, and the Raiders are going to pay back the Bengals for their loss earlier in the season. I say that the final score is going to be Raiders 30, Bengals 21.
Sounds good. And I'm also calling it a Raiders victory. I got to be careful about the score because we're going to kick a lot of field goals. There's just no way around it. We're going to kick field goals, but we will be able to get a couple of touchdowns in there as well. It was nice to be able to actually come up with some real touchdowns on Sunday night. Josh Jacobs had his rushing touchdown. Hunter Renfrow had a couple of touchdowns. So it was good to see some actual conversions into the end zone. Carlson, he was like 5 for 5 on field goals. He was incredible. But I see the Raiders winning against Cincinnati. I do. I see them avenging the loss against the Bengals. And I'm going to go with the Raiders for the victory. And I'm going to say the Raiders will win 27-17.
I'm just hoping for the Raiders' sake and for everybody's sake that there's not a repeat of the Cincinnati weather. You may have remembered, this may be before your time, but back in 1981, Cincinnati hosted a playoff game against the then San Diego Chargers, who were favored, and the wind chill was minus 58 degrees. Cincinnati ended up winning that game and then going on to the Super Bowl, which they promptly lost to San Francisco. But I'm hoping for the Raiders' sake and for everybody's sake that we never, ever see that kind of weather ever again.
I do remember the Bengals in the Super Bowl that year, but I do not remember that playoff game. I was 5 years old and my family did not watch sports, so I probably probably as a fledgling little football fan, kind of interested in the sport, just kept track of the Super Bowl that year. So, T3, why don't you give us your top 3 for the week?
T3's top 3.
All right, here is this week's top 3. Number 1, this is the first time the Raiders this century have gotten their 8th win after getting their 5th loss. In the past, that's always meant no playoffs. But this time, in the words of Brent Musburger, jackpot, baby. Number 2, I want to give a special cheerleader game ball to Kenyon Drake. Despite not being on the field, Drake was one of the biggest cheerleaders out there, and I think it's representative of how close-knit this team is. These guys truly have each other's backs, and I don't think there was anyone in Allegiant Stadium that was any happier for Josh Jacobs' success than Kenyon Drake. I can't wait to get this guy back into the lineup next season. And number 3, Rich Bisaccia deserves NFL Coach of the Year regardless of how the team does in the playoffs. No one has ever had to step into his first head coaching job and endure all the travails that this man has, yet maintain his composure and dignity and be a leader that everyone wants to play well and do well for. He may not be the head coach going forward after this playoff run, but I think he will always deserve special recognition from the organization and from all of Raider Nation for the fantastic job that he's done. He went 7-5 after taking over the team in midstream. You know who else did that? Art Shell back in 1989, except Shell wasn't able to get the team into the playoffs until the following year. This team is a team on the rise. And that is this week's top 3.
Yeah, and you know what? As far as the Brent Musburger reference, does anyone actually like him saying jackpot, baby?
If they win and goes into the playoffs, I'll take it.
He's an interesting announcer, but I know that he has not won the hearts over of Raider Nation. So,
well, you know my thoughts and opinion. If it were my call, I would have Beth Mowins and Lincoln Kennedy doing it from day one on out, and for as long as we can keep them.
And I would love to listen to that group. Those two would be quite a pairing on broadcast.
Maybe it can happen.
Maybe. And I agree, Kenyon Drake, he has been such a lift to the team. He's been such a lift to Josh Jacobs. I am really looking forward to seeing him next year. I know I say I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of things, but Kenyon Drake, I was so glad we signed him for a 2-year deal instead of just the 1-year deal. I think he's been very valuable to Josh Jacobs. He's been very valuable to the running back room. And I'm excited to see him actually being back on the field and being able to contribute number-wise as well. And Rich Bisaccia, he has done incredible job. He is the first coach in the Super Bowl era to take over as interim head coach and lead the team to the playoffs. It's never been done before, and he actually did it. Now, I think that he is primarily a special teams coach, and he's a good special teams coach. I don't think that he deserves to be head coach, but what he has done this season is deserve a chance of interviewing for the job and being considered for the job. I really think that we need a different head coach, but Bisaccia has earned the right to be considered and interviewed. And I hope that the Raiders do give him that because he's definitely earned it. What he's done and what he's led the team through is nothing short of miraculous. And I'm glad that he was there. I know that people were kind of surprised when he was tapped to be the interim head coach, but I think that he's shown that he was the right man for the job.
And I think Rich, given the choice, would gladly jump back to being special teams guru and coach again, rather than having all the things on his plate that he's had. But he's handled it so well.
He really has. And you can tell the team really enjoys playing for him and wants to win for him.
They love this guy. I'm not sure if you heard Max Crosby's press conference, but when they asked him his thoughts, he just says, I just can't say enough about this guy. I mean, all these guys would gladly line up and just run through a wall for Rich Bisaccia. And you can say what you want about Gruden, but Gruden had a tendency to rub some people the wrong way. He motivated a lot of people, but he turned some people off. Rich Bisaccia has not turned anybody off. Everybody loves this guy.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Give us a call at 904-701-8667. Leave a voicemail or text message at that number or send in a message via social media and we'll share your thoughts. Also, remember to send in your name and address and phone number so we can add you to the list of entries for the free personalized jersey.
That's right. We'll give you a couple of weeks, so make sure you get in your name. Hit us up on voicemail, text message, whatever. But we'll give you a couple of weeks. We have another jersey giveaway, and we're anxious to give it away.
And yes, if you've entered or won before, re-enter. It's a new season. Go ahead. You deserve it. And what's going on Raider Roots this week, T3?
All right, Heidi. This week, we're going to take a complete look, top to bottom, at Super Bowl 15. Jim Plunkett and company win the second world championship in professional football for the city of Oakland. And it's also Tom Flores' first Lombardi trophy.
Sounds good. I already listened to it. It is a very good episode.
Now, Heidi, I think we had a couple of questions this week.
We did. Last week, we did have a few questions that I mentioned that came from Soren, and we are going to address them. And you know what? One thing that he did ask is something that we are going to address. Where has Homer gone, and is he going to be back? Homer has been very busy with things in his booster club, and he's been taking care of things in real life. He's not gone from the show. He's still a big part of the show. We still talk to him and discuss things with him. And we're hoping that once the season's over, that he will be able to come back. It's just that right now, it's just there's a little bit too much going on in his life to be able to contribute to us on a weekly basis.
We've been keeping his chair warm for him.
Yes, we are hoping that he's able to come back very soon. Okay. And here's the other question. Secondly, could you maybe talk about what will happen to the 2019 draft class this offseason? I don't think that they will pick up the fifth-year option on Farrell, Jacobs, or Abrams since it will be too expensive compared to their output. But the other three from that draft class, Renfro, Mad Max, and Mullen, should get new long contracts. Hope they extend Foster as well, but I fear that they won't. So what do you think about that, T3?
Okay, Renfro, lock him up. Crosby, lock him up. Those are two no-brainers for me. Mullen, I could see going either way. I don't think he's proven himself enough yet as far as dependability and in terms of being injury-free to be able to warrant being locked up. But now, when you look at the others, Farrell is going to be back next year. Is he going to get that fifth-year option? No. But Farrell, I believe, is going to be a good, solid, dependable player. I think maybe next year, perhaps, could be his best year. Because if he doesn't have that shadow over him of having to pick up that fifth-year option, I think he's going to play freer. And if he has some more support, I think he's going to play solid pretty much like he did this past week. I think he had a good game. Now, Josh Jacobs is going to have another good game as well. There's no way they're going to pick up the option for him. $10.5 million for a guy who's been injury ridden. And when you can pick up a back probably in the third or fourth round, the way running backs are used up in this league, you just simply can't shell out the money for that. Jacobs is still going to be an important part of the team next year, but I do not think he's going to have that option picked up. And as far as Abram goes, I'm not sure that he makes the team next year. Now, that may seem like a stretch, but I think with Divine Diablo coming in like he's come in and played solid, if they bring another couple of guys into the defensive backfield, paired up with guys who are already there, I'm not sure Abram makes the team. So that's kind of my assessment generally for the 2019 class, except for Foster Moreau. Foster Moreau is going to make the team next year. I don't think they pick up his option. That may or may not be a mistake because Waller's starting to get a little wear on the tires. But again, Moreau will be back on the team next year. I don't see them picking up the option, but he can end up making himself quite a bit of money if he has a big season next year.
Yeah, and of course, Foster doesn't have that fifth-year option like a first-round draft pick, but they could definitely re-sign him. The only difference I would say is I'm not sure that Cleveland Farrell will be around next year. I'm not saying that he's not good enough to make the team. I think he certainly is, and I always did like him as a draft pick, but he never lived up to the position of his draft pick, and that's been a shame because he has been a good player. But I think that the Raiders and him just might come to a mutual agreement that it's time for him to move on, get a fresh change of scenery, and be able to excel and play somewhere else. I like Mullen. I'm not sure about them re-upping him. I could definitely see them do it. Renfro and Mad Max, they have to be locked up. I don't care what anyone says. But Abram, I agree. I'm not sure he even makes the team as far as just being able to make the team. Farrell, I think if he doesn't make the team, that'll be because of a mutual agreement to just go their separate ways. Abram, he just might not be able to make the team.
I think that Farrell will make the team simply because I don't think that the Raiders feel like they can get back for him what he's worth. And I think this is where next year he can really prove himself to a lot of teams. Now, I could be wrong. They might part ways early, but I think that, particularly with a taste of the playoffs, if Farrell knows that this team is on the rise and is going to be successful, I think he's willing to roll the dice on himself and with this team another year, particularly if he can get some more support on the defense. And with the defense coming together like it has been, I think he is willing to see himself as a role player for next year, whereas this past year, I'm not sure that he did.
And then Soren also asked us if we could evaluate the 2018, 17, 16 draft class. So we'll be doing that in a future show as well.
Absolutely. Derek Carr was a good draft pick.
That was 2014, dude.
He's about the only one left. We've got him. We've got Colton Miller and Jalen Richard, and that's about it.
Well, Miller, we didn't pick up until a few years after him. So
right.
All right, T3. Why don't we find out what we do or don't know?
All right, it's time for another edition of Did You Know? In this segment, I will ask Heidi and our entire listening audience a Raiders-related question with 3 multiple-choice answers to choose from, so just give it your best guess. Here is this week's question. And we're going to go back and pay tribute once again to John Madden. And, of course, it was so great seeing Virginia Madden and the entire Madden family lighting the torch for that last game, which sent them on to the playoffs. So this question really is a tribute to John Madden. So Madden once jokingly said that this famous Raiders player was so skinny that his back pants pockets could have a close conversation with each other. Now, who was Madden referring to? Was it A, Fred Biletnikoff, B, Ray Guy, or C, Cliff Branch?
Oh, man, all 3 of them are kind of a little bit skinny. Why could you throw in a couple of chunky ones in there? That'd make it a lot easier.
They all have to be trim guys.
Yes, they do. I'm just gonna go with a guess and say a Fred Bolitnikoff.
All right, here's the correct answer C, Cliff Branch. One of these guys is not like the others, so Fred Bolitnikoff and Ray Guy are already in the Hall of Fame. Cliff Branch should have already been in the Hall of Fame, and we think is going to be in officially this summer in 2022. So the answer is, not knock on wood, future Hall of Famer Cliff Branch. C is your answer.
Oh, I think there's probably a 97% chance that he makes it in because usually that senior nominee makes it in pretty much rubber stamped. So I'm looking forward to seeing him take his rightful place in the Hall of Fame, even though he's no longer here to see it. And he really should have been able to see it in person.
After the Heidi game, the Holy Roller, the Immaculate Deception, and the Sea of Hands, nothing is a sure thing until it's in the bag.
Exactly. That's why it's a 97, not 100.
All right, now, Raider Nation, it is time for Heidi's Heroes.
Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
All right, Raider Nation. I had somebody picked out as Heidi Hero before the game started, but after watching the game, there's just no way I cannot pick a game hero from the Raiders team. And the game hero is a two-headed monster, and it's a couple of really obvious ones. Josh Jacobs, 26 rushing attempts for 132 yard and a touchdown, along with a 28-yard run. And what was it, 10 yards right at the end of overtime to set up
Right.
the field goal. His contribution was out of this world, and it made all the difference in the game and the victory over the Chargers. And another person that really contributed to the game, he rubber stamped the game. He said, absolutely, we are going forward. And that is who I've now dubbed as Danny Ice. Daniel Carlson, 5 for 5 in field goals, long of 52, 2 extra points, didn't miss any. And as you said, he has never missed a field goal in Allegiant Stadium. He's not going to for the rest of the year, that's for sure, because we will not be playing in Allegiant again. Uh, unless there's a miracle. But we will probably not be playing again in Allegiant for the end of the 2021 season. Daniel Carlson, I mean, he'll miss the occasional extra point. He might miss the occasional field goal that doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. But when it comes to the ones that really matter, the game altering ones, he is just lights out. And he is such a good field goal kicker, such a good place kicker. Thank you, Vikings, for giving up on him as quickly as you did. We will be using him for many years to come. He's going to be a foundation of our special teams for years to come. And I just got to give heroes to Josh Jacobs, Daniel Carlson. Both of you went above and beyond, and the victory can really be attributed to how both of you played.
Excellent choices for heroes for this week. And I want to give an honorable mention hero, if you will allow me, to a guy who I said was not worth signing to the team this year. We had all the controversy during the offseason with the COVID vaccine and the injuries. And I said we should cut him. He shouldn't make the team. And he was missing week after week after week. But Jalen Richard came out for this game against the Chargers and stepped up. He made play after play. He never gave up. He was churning those legs and making receptions and making moves. And I really think that this was not necessarily a coming out game for him, but I think it was definitely a prove it game. I think he proved to the entire Raider Nation that it's a good thing that they hung on to him for the rest of the year. And he paid dividends there at the end. And the other thing that I will mention in addition to that is even though the Raiders may not be playing another game in Allegiant Stadium, they might still have a home game if they make it to the Super Bowl, because that's going to be in our other home stadium, which is in Los Angeles.
That's very true. Like I said, I didn't want to say it, So, matter of fact, we are the 5th seed. So, it is possible that the playoffs would swing around back to Las Vegas. But it would be nice to be able to go into SoFi and win our first Super Bowl in decades there. That would be nice.
Nothing would make me happier than to have Vegas beat the Rams in SoFi Stadium.
Looking forward to it. But first, let's beat those Bengals.
Absolutely.
And that about does it for this week on the Only Nation podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Chucky's Thugs, for sponsoring this episode. If you'd like to help support the show, you can send in a donation at paypal.me/onlynationpod. You can find me, Heidi Stabbert, on social media as @KeblerPromDress on Twitter and Instagram, or Heidi Stabbert on Facebook. You can also find me on YouTube on Captain Jack Rackham's channel every other Tuesday night. Join the DC Wench Peggy Holmes and Andrea Trask on the Captain and His Wenches show.
All right, Raider Nation, we are going to the playoffs, and we want you with us every step of the way for as long as we can go, and even beyond that, because we're going to be with you all during the off season. Now, here's what we'd like you to do. Send us your name and address so we can send you some free Raiders swag and podcast stickers, and also register for that jersey giveaway. We'll be giving out registrations and collecting them over the next couple of weeks. Call us, tell us what you want to know, throw us an interesting nugget that we can use in one of our upcoming episodes, and become a part of what we're doing here. Remember, this is the only nation, and we want you to be a part of it. So call us 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. Call us now and join the Only Nation podcast family. Now, there are 2 easy ways to find me on social media. You can send me a tweet at T3_sports703, or you can hit me up on Facebook at Tom, Thom Jones. I want to also thank all of you for your continued support of the Raider Roots podcast. This week, we'll be traveling back to 1980, actually January of 1981, and we will break down the entire Super Bowl in New Orleans. And you know how that went.
As always, we look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, everyone, go Raiders.
We are not just a nation. We are the only nation, and we are headed for the playoffs.
Raiders.